Okay, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to the channel and you've come in at this video, this is stage 3 of the making the bag of the craft bucket bag. Everything's in the description below of where to buy the pattern from or the kit. Yes, there is a kit available within my shop. There is 2 other videos prior to this as well, so I will leave those in the description below on how to watch those as well. So we are now making the lining part of the bag. So for this part you'll need the lining base piece, the lining main body pieces, so you need 2 of those, and then you'll need the lining pieces of the inside slip pockets, and you'll have 2 of those. Those 2 are the only pieces within the lining that is not interfaced, and you'll need the other 2 parts of the inside slip pockets, which are the outer parts, and those are interfaced. So we're going to start with the slip pocket. So we're going to pop the main body pieces and the actual base to one side. You'll also need your elasticated 1/4 inch elastic, 1/4 inch wide, and you'll need to cut it into 2 pieces, and your safety pin, but we won't need those at this present stage. So a bit like what we did on the outer slip pocket, you need to get 1 main outer piece of the slip pocket and 1 lining piece, pop those right sides together and sew along the top edge, which is the shortest one out the 2 long sides, and you're sewing using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance or 1 centimetre, and you need to do that for both slip pockets. And then once you've sewn them, you need to turn them right side facing out and give them a press, and then I'll meet you back at the table. Do not top stitch at that stage either. Okay, so now I've actually sewn those pieces together, and I've basically given it a press, turning it to the right side facing out and giving it a good press. What we need to do is, we are going to top stitch, but we're going to top stitch 1/2 inch away from this edge. So the best way to make sure you stick to 1/2 inch away from the edge is actually draw a line using a fabric pen, just a faint line. Okay, as you can see, I've got a faint line going across, and what we're going to do is just top stitch, but with top stitching on this part you need to reverse your stitches and lock your stitches at the start and at the end, and you need to do that for both slip pockets, and then I'll meet you back at the table. Right, so now we have top stitched 1/2 inch away from the edge, and making sure we reverse those stitches at the start and at the end, and we've done that for both slip pockets. You need to get your safety pin and 1 piece of elastic and pin it through the end like so, and close the safety pin. You'll need a pin as well. So what we're going to do is just pop the 1 slip pocket to one side at the moment. Doesn't matter which end you start at. I'm going to go from this end, and I'm just going to feed it into that channel that we made and keep feeding. what you got to make sure is you don't lose this end inside the channel. So I tend to keep it just within my fingers to start off with. And what I'm doing is feeling that safety pin or bobbin and pushing it along every half an inch. And making sure there is no creases at the moment in that part of the top part of the pocket. Now the pin should come out the other end. That's if you've given yourself enough, the right amount of elastic. So don't pull that pin at this point. We're just making sure it's laying flat. Because I've got quite a lot of overhang here, I'm just going to pull it just a little. So I've got approximately an inch or just under an inch sticking out this end. I'm going to get a pin and pin that into place, making sure I've caught the elastic and it's not going anywhere. Right, so get one of your main body pieces. I do give you a measurement of how much to pull at this point in the pattern, but depending on what you want to put in these pockets, you might not want to pull it as much as I say in the pattern. So this part is totally up to you. You need to work out what you're going to be putting in these slip pockets inside your bag, and how many dividers are we going to divide this up into. So I'm going to clip this side or pin it into place. So I'm going to actually take that pin out and repin it onto the actual body piece itself. Then I'm just going to pull. I know you can see I've got a bit of a gather here, so I'm just going to massage that into the centre and keep pulling until I like the look of the pocket. Okay, I think that's going to be enough for me. So if I just give you how much of excess I've got left over. So I've got about 7 inches left over here. And that's given me that's 8 inches of elastic outside the bag, outside the pocket, because I've got about an inch there. What I'm going to do is match up the bottom of the slip pocket and pop a pin in this elastic part here, so it attaches itself to the bag, making sure that pin's gone all the way through to the back. Okay, and then I'm just going to get another pin, making sure that part of the slip pocket meet up as well. And I'm just going to pin down both of those sides. Now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew down these 2 sides here within the seam allowance, and I'm going to reverse stitch a few times over this part, these 2 parts here where the elastic comes out. Once I've done that, I will trim any excess elastic off so it's not within the seam allowance. Then what I will do while I'm at the sewing machine, once I've sewn down those 2 sides, is flip this over and then just stitch along the bottom, making sure everything is matching up. Now you might want to pin it or clip it. I don't. I just basically pull it as much as I can, not stretching it, but just pulling it and making sure the seams all match together. You need to do that process for both the other slip pocket and the main body piece, lining piece. Right, so I've trimmed the excess elastic off on this slip pocket. I'm just going to do the same on this pocket. Now that piece there could come in handy for something, so don't throw it away. Right, so you at this point really do need to work out what you're going to be storing in these pockets. I want this to actually become a crafter's tote, so I want to put some large glue bottles in there, or some larger tools like my hot glue gun and stuff like that. So I'm only going to be sewing down, making 4 slip pockets out of my 2 lining pieces. So I'll be sewing down the centre. But for example, if you're making a sewing crafter's tote, you might want to actually measure the width of your scissors at the top here and then sew down there, and same with your rotary cutter in the centre. So it's personal choice, up to you, of how many pockets you divide, but I personally wouldn't go any further than splitting this up into 4 sections. The reason being is it's because the amount of elastic I've actually put in there, or not put in there for this particular reason. So I'm just going to sew down the centre. So what I end up doing is I stretch it. Now this is where you need free hands. First of all, fold it in half and find the centre top and centre bottom. This is if you're doing it my way. If you're going to do it your way, as in put more pockets in, you will need to actually do the measurements yourself. So I found the centre top and centre bottom. Pop a pin in that bit there. So that's my centre top. So I'm going to stretch and pin at the same time. So this is where you really do need to have free hands. So I've pinned the centre of the top of the pocket. We're just going to find the centre bottom and I'm just going to pop a pin there. Then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and reverse stitching a few times at the top of the slip pocket and sewing down to the bottom. And I'm going to repeat this complete same process for this slip pocket too. And I'm only going to be sewing down the centre to make 4 inner slip pockets. Okay, so now I've sewn down the 2 centres to make my 4 inner slip pockets. Just like we did on the outer bag, we are going to make the inner bag the same way. So we're going to pop these right sides together, matching up those key areas, which is the top of the slip pockets, and the bottom, and clip down the 2 sides. Then you're going to take this to your sewing machine and stitch them together using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance or 1 centimetre. What I actually do, and I don't mention this in the pattern because this sometimes confuses some people, is I start off at 3/8 of an inch at the top, then I go down about an inch, doing 3/8 of an inch, then I taper so it ends up being 1/2 an inch seam allowance, and I carry on doing that down to about an inch from the bottom, and then I taper back to 3/8 of an inch down the bottom. So this will actually generate taking some bulk out of the lining within the bag. So I'm going to take this to my machine and stitch down these 2 sides, doing the tapering that I've just mentioned at the start and at the end. And we're going to, at the start and at the end, use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance or 1 centimetre seam allowance. Right, so now I've sewn down the 2 sides. I'll just show you what I mean by tapering. I started off at 3/8 of an inch here, then I tapered in to 1/2 inch, carried on sewing for 1/2 inch seam allowance to about here, and then I tapered back to 3/8 of an inch. And I did that for both sides. So now, like we did with the base on the outer, we need to find the 4/4. So get a pair of scissors, fold it in half and snip. Same with the other half, making sure the sides match up, and snip. Then I'm going to fold it this way so the two centres match up. I'm just going to snip that one. And same with this one. Right, on the outer bag, I got you to press these seams open. For the lining bag, we are going to actually trim them back. So we're going to trim them back to at least half of the amount away. On both sides. Okay, and then making sure we've still got dominant and centre seams at the bottom of the bag, and then we're just going to do like we did last time, match up the two centres of the outer bag with the two centres of the long edges of the base, and popping these right sides together as well. I'm going to clip those into place. Then we're going to do the same with the two smaller sides, matching up the side seams this time to that centre. Snip. Same with the other one. Okay. And then, like we did before, we are going to, and you'll see it naturally fall in to place when you start clipping it around. Right, so you're going to carry on clipping like you did on the base, clip all the way around, and then you're going to take it to your sewing machine, and we're going to stitch 3/8 of an inch all the way around, and then bring it back to the table. Right, so now we've sewn all the way around, we just need to trim back this excess seam allowance. So I'm just going to get my scissors, and you're trimming it back by half. All the way around, making sure you don't go into your sewn lines. This is so it will sit neatly or close to neatly into your outer bag. And just pop all that stuff to one side. Now we're going to get the outer bag that we made earlier on, making sure it's right side facing out. You're going to need some clips at this point. And now we're going to pop the lining right into the bag so the two wrong sides are together. We're going to match up the side seam of the lining to the side seam of the bag even though you trimmed it back, you might want to just slightly finger press that open and match it up and pop a peg or clip on it. Do the same for the other side seam. So obviously we've got to open that up and give it a bit of a finger press and match it to that one. Right, so at this point I just like to get my hand in and push it down. Okay, and then I also get my hands in where those inside slip pockets are. Okay, so we're now going to just put some clips all the way around the top, matching up the top of the outer bag and the lining bag. I'm going to do that all the way around. You might want to put a few clips in this section because, or where you've stitched the slip pockets to make the extra slip pockets or the dividers, because if you notice mine's trying to pull, so it's just best if you clip a few extra clips in those particular areas. And I'm keep popping in my hand in those slip pockets to make sure that it's lying flat before I clip it into place. Okay, and do the same on this side. Now if you're finding that it's a bit baggy here, if you just clip it as much as you can at the moment. What you need to do is just stretch it out a bit and it will go. I've just got a little bit of a kink there, so I'm just going to massage it all out a bit so there is no kinks. There you go. So you're going to take this to your sewing machine and stitch all the way around. Now you might want to turn this so it's this way, pointing out, or if you have got a free arm on your sewing machine, use the free arm, and all your stitching is 1/4 inch away from the top all the way around, and then basically pop this all to one side. So this is the end of the 3rd section, and we'll be going into the 4th section, which is making the closure top and adding the binding on. So if you've got past this stage, congratulations, and we'll move on to the next step. Thank you.